New reports today that the White House will start pitching its tax reform efforts next month. And we're hearing the president himself will be barnstorming America, working to get taxes lower. Joining me right now for more analysis on healthcare and tax reform, we have conservative political commentator Gina Loudon and Democratic strategist Pablo Manriquez. Good to see you both.
Afternoon,
Gina,
Trish.
good to see you. I'll start with you. I mean, I got to tell, I've said this to the viewer before. I'm getting a little tired of this on the healthcare front. In other words, they were sent there to do a job. And a primary part of that job was repealing and replacing Obamacare. And if they can't get it done, isn't this going to cost them come midterms?
It is going to cost them come midterms, Trish. They need to absolutely get this done. They're not going to have the perfect bill, but I think that some of the things that Senator Cruz added definitely make it more palatable, let's say, for those who are used to the way things used to work in Washington, D.C., right? The old guard. And that's really what we're seeing here. We're seeing the establishment versus the swamp drainers, and it probably going to have to be a little compromise on both parts.
Okay, so what does this mean for Rand Paul and for Susan Collins then? Are they going to go down as part of the swamp, Pablo?
Well, I mean, they certainly are they seem to be the most powerful people in this negotiation right now. But still, as we've seen in the past, when people attack what is Obamacare, which in essence is a lot of people getting very inexpensive insurance, especially elderly people, it doesn't go well for them and their town halls. It doesn't go well for them when they return to their districts. Susan Collins is a case in point. When she returned to Maine during the last recess, this was literally the only topic that her constituents wanted to talk to her about. The concern I have really is that, obviously there are fixes that need to be made to Obamacare, but the repeal and replacement conversation seems to be a lot more toxic and not really productive or proactive.
Well, Obamacare itself, let's face it, is very toxic. I mean, this is one of the reasons why Democrats lost not just the White House, but pretty much, you go right across the board, whether, you're talking state offices, whether you're talking the Senate, the House, people were fed up with what was Obamacare. So they want that changed. They want it repealed. They want it replaced with something better. And there is a lot of pressure on the Republicans. Go ahead, Pablo.
But Trish, wouldn't you say that people aren't necessarily, I guess, like they want Obamacare completely changed? I think that they want the unpredictability of Obamacare to kind of flatten out. Like, I think that the big suffering that I've known. No, okay.
I think you have to consider.
Go ahead, Gina.
I think you have to consider who. Thank you. I think you have to consider who voted for this president. Those people wanted a total repeal of Obamacare. People know that their premiums have gone so high that they are losing any coverage at all. This is a death spiral of the American insurance system, and it's not going to work. And something has to be done. A total repeal is what the American people actually voted for. Repeal and replace is what the squishy people in Washington, D.C. decided to do.
The problem, Pablo, just to jump in here for a moment, is that so many insurers are pulling out of these markets, right? They can't make it work financially. So I hear you say, okay, maybe go ahead and tweak this, tweak that. Fundamentally, you have a problem, though, when the people providing these insurance products say, we don't want to be in this business. Right, so you are increasingly making your way towards that single-payer system. Now, those on the left, those that supported Obamacare, many of them would prefer to see a single-payer system. But the majority of Americans do not want that. So you're stuck now in a situation where you've got to come up with something that's meaningful, something that you can replace it with, and it's not going to look a whole lot like Obamacare.
Right. I just don't know that changing it completely or completely wiping it out makes for the kind of stability that people want and what they're paying out of pocket.
Well, they're paying a lot. Let me turn to tax reform, because that is a biggie. And I think if you want to generate 3% growth, as the Treasury Secretary is promising, you've got to get tax reform done. This is something that, by the way, should be a no-brainer. It's bipartisan. Democrats, Republicans should be able, Gina, to at least agree we need a corporate tax reform, because how is it fair that Ireland, the UK, Canada has lower corporate taxes than us?
Right. We have the highest, and that's not exactly putting America first, and something absolutely has to be done about it. And you think that our elected representatives would be the first to say, yes, we need to put America first, and we need to make sure that business has the breathing room to prosper in the United States. But, here's the thing. When you look at the fact that they start out with the linguistic of saying that it's tax reform instead of just tax cuts, we need to educate the American public, Trish, and not be afraid to talk about actual tax cuts.
I like that. They're so darn afraid because they worry, Pablo, that someone's going to say, oh my goodness, well, this is just a tax cut for those that are wealthy. To which I'd say it's a tax cut for those that are paying taxes. Let's not forget, nearly half the country pays nothing in the way of federal income tax.
I think that tax reform needs to be approached with a very sensitive message, like very sensitive to the messaging realities of how the American people do talk about it. I think you're absolutely right, Trish. And I think that, I guess, given I know how much you love tax reform, and I know how
tax cuts. Gina's putting the right verbiage on this.
Given how clumsy the Trump care rollout has been, I think that you actually have like an A team on this one. Sean Spicer and Ryan Priebus are really back together in on this one, and I think that Sean's back more in a communication sort of strategist role, which I think was really where he really thrives. Obviously, Dave Cohen, Steve Mnuchin, they've been thinking about this for a long time, so I didn't think we're going to have the same situation where we kind of get to the point where repeal and replace was promised, but there was no plan in place.
The whole border tax reform issue. I mean, that's been a big sticking point.
Yeah.
It was ugly. I think that Paul Ryan has finally come around, but there are folks there that may still not want to be on board, and the train is leaving the station, as far as I'm concerned, with tax cuts. Gina, Pablo, good to see you. I'll see you in a little bit. Joining me right now with his thoughts on tax cuts.